All right, do we have me yet? There we go. Not sure what happened there, guys. Um, not sure at all. For whatever reason, the microphone was not being picked up, but I think we've got it now, and we're ready for the NASCAR Pinty Series Power Hour here on G-Force TV with a little bit of technical problems. It would not be me on a podcast if we didn't have some sort of technical problem here, but we are back once again for our favorite hour of the week, the NASCAR Pinty Series Power on G-Force TV. Well, we are coming off of what was an insane weekend in more ways than just one at CTMP. Unfortunately, it started off as a really, really crazy situation on Saturday. We're not going to go too much into that. If you've been on social media, you do know what has happened. We obviously have our thoughts with everybody that was affected by that storm that took place at CTMP. There were some injuries. Lots of people's property was damaged. My good buddy Graydon Bunn, our co-host on the Stickers and Scuffs podcast, had his tents destroyed. A good amount of equipment destroyed for the teams in the FEL series. And then, of course, um, just the track damage itself. Now, with that being said, the amount of work that was put in by the facility, by everybody there, was absolutely amazing. They came together and they were even able to do an FEL race towards the end of the day. Now, as we continue on in our show tonight, we will go over everything that took place at CTMP. I was away on the last week after an illness, so I was not able to do the show after Sunset. Obviously, Sunset had its own craziness. This week, we follow it up once again with more craziness. Well, we're going to go and we'll check out the finish here. Obviously, it's one of the most controversial finishes we've had. Once again, this series tends to do that. But I'm going to let you guys see what we're talking about right now. It's the finish that was brought to you on Flow Racing and TSN.ca. We'll hopefully see if this. Let's get the finish. So you can see here we had Gary Clute and Kevin Lacroix side by side and contact in the final corner. And Kevin Lacroix goes on to get the race victory. We'll play it once again for you guys here. And, it just goes to show you that this is what happens in the close battle. Obviously, there's a lot of people that are upset over this finish. A lot of Gary Clute fans that are upset. A lot of people that are anti-Kevin Lacroix. And I totally understand that. Contact here is what we see quite often. And Kevin Lacroix is no stranger to contact. However, at the end of the day, it is a race. And racing is the name of the game. Contact is going to happen at times. We know that Kevin is not afraid to show the bumper and show his displeasure for other drivers when it happens to him. I'll bet you Gary Clute won't have any issues dumping or making contact with the 74 at times, especially after a race like this. Now, one thing I have to make sure of is that people are aware. Listen, you making comments on social media is not going to do anything about this. The reality of the situation is the drivers and the teams are going to handle this themselves, and you can bet that if Gary Clute is in a position, he will be moving Kevin Lacroix. Now, I've had the opportunity to interview Kevin Lacroix. I've talked with him before. The funny thing about Kevin is his personality doesn't actually suit how he races. He's very different. When you talk to him face to face, He doesn't come across as that overly aggressive guy. He's very actually quite shy, and he's actually a very humorous individual. Obviously, you can be upset about the way things are in racing, but I think what it shows once again is that this is kind of the way that people are racing each other nowadays. It doesn't just mean that the NASCAR Pinty Series garage is like this. We see it all over in the Cup Series. You saw it with Joey Logano and William Byron only a couple of weeks ago. This is the way that people pass. It's not the correct way in a lot of people's minds, but at the end of the day, if you were in Kevin Lacroix's suit, if you're behind the wheel of his car, you've been dominant the entire race, somebody comes up and is going to pass you, and you don't want that, that's how you're going to take things in those final corners. And I'm a Gary Clute fan, but I'm a fan of the series as well. And finishes like this are absolutely crazy. I would prefer no contact, honestly. I think you could have set up I think Kevin would have had the momentum anyways if he had just bumped Gary a little bit. They would have been able to draw side by side, similar to a Ryan Blaney or Armand Quiroga finish in the Truck Series a couple of seasons ago. That's not completely unheard of, but when we get to wrecking somebody to win a race, obviously that's where people's frustrations come out. And that's completely warranted. As race fans, you're allowed to finish and feel that way. Now, as we continue on into our season, we're going to go to our results for this race. Now, I was there at CTMP. Now, the one thing that people need to understand is that when NASCAR's social media team is updating, they have to be able to have service. And unfortunately, there just wasn't service in a lot of places at CTMP, myself included. I did not have service the entire day. Unfortunately, Chester's just going to hang out here. Chester's going to hang out with me. We've always got one cat hanging out on the show, but Brian West, it's what the rule package provides in the Cup Series for sure. Absolutely, right? It's true though. I mean, we can talk about this until, what's the expression, until the cows come home. But the reality of the situation is it's so hard to win in this series, and Kevin Lacroix he's in that position where he wants to win the title finally. I didn't think that this move was inconsistent with what we see typically at the final corner at CTMP, and we know that Kevin doesn't really care in the end. Like he will move if he has to. You know, he does it for his sponsors. He has a brand new sponsor on that car this week, so that was the move he decided to make, and Gary Clute will be the decider as to what happens from here on out. I think Gary's message at the end, it is what it is. That's exactly how he feels. And Gary's too nice, I think, to really say how he felt. But we'll definitely see what the RGC Sports team will do in the future. Now, if you were there at the racetrack, you know it started off really wet. It was freezing cold, and the field was not very competitive. Let's be honest. I love this series, but this was a runaway. This was like last week in a way. There's a good chunk of the field that is not even close to regular speed here. They'll try, and they'll do their best, but there was a lot of people who were completely out to lunch this weekend. There was a huge field of cars, which is great. 25 cars. We were originally going to have 27. We had 2 withdrawals. But 25 cars for this race was a good warm-up. I think, once again, GM Paillet and Paillet Racing is going to be a dominant team this season. But, once again, they had some mistakes and unfortunately some mechanical failures that led to Andrew Ranger being out of the race really before it got going. And that's somebody I think everybody was anticipating. He made it 3 wide right off the start. And Brian, you know what? I'm going to read Brian's comment here because it's actually a very interesting comment, and it's something that I think we could really talk about because it does play a role in this series. And is it right? Not in my opinion, but racing clean isn't taught these days. He's absolutely correct. It isn't. Bumping and running and running into people is kind of how the big guys do it. And I think that's where it starts. I don't think it starts down here. I think it starts with the Cup Series, the Truck Series, Xfinity Series. Those guys are on the big platform. And when they allow that, and they allow people to do that type of move and allow people to race like that, that's what's going to happen. Now, there are people that stand by this type of racing that think it's more than fun. But at the end of the day, being able to connect with a lot of these race teams and these race drivers, I've really realized that the cost is just insane. Why a lot of people weren't going out there and really killing it this weekend, I think, was to save their cars. The reality is they don't have enough this season to risk tearing up a car in 51 laps at CTMP when you have 12, 13 races you have to do. So we talked with Sam Fellows. You'll hear a little bit from him later on in the race. He had a very difficult weekend, finishing in 25th place. Really didn't even get an opportunity to start the race. They had a failure on the pace laps, which absolutely that's painful to have happen. Ray Jr. Conamash involved in a wreck. Matthew Skinnell had a mechanical failure, and he was up doing quite well again in a couple one-off starts for him. Brent Weller made a return to the series this season, and again, a difficult kind of week for him. However, he ran it as much as he could. Brian Cathcart, same thing. Wallace Stacy, Glenn Stiers. Peter Kloot ended up parking the car after some contact, not able to finish the race. We did run 57, but as you see, the lap counters are quite small. Unfortunately, a lot of lap cars, and a large majority of the field was lapped very early in the race because of the experience level. Is definitely there. For a lot of these drivers like Lacroix, Tagliani, Ranger, Dumoulin, they have a lot of experience racing in the rain, whereas a lot of other guys have no experience at all. TJ Renamato, 16th place, solid run for him, just motoring around there and staying out of trouble. Mark Dilley struggled all weekend, actually, in that 64. They really just didn't seem to have the pace that he had at Sunset Speedway. Dilley's more known as an oval guy, but a bit of a struggle for him, which is not something I would have expected thanks to their good start. RGC Sports has had really Gary Kloot this weekend as their top guy. Long live Brian Cathcart, Brian West. He's been doing it a long time, and the flow is still going, man. He's out there. He's having a blast. And I agree with you, man. Bumping and running is a whole different thing. Intentionally pushing someone out of the way isn't. It's hard to say, man. Contact is contact, right? So there's either you race clean or you don't. And when you see guys that do it all the time in the Cup Series, it makes it very simple for people to go, you know what? My sponsors deserve a win. I deserve a win. I don't care who's at, who I have to hurt to do it. It's not really the way, the gentleman way of racing. It's a difficult topic, man, but I think we've seen it time in and time out. And unfortunately, I think it's here to stay because I think that's the way that people are just learning that they have to race. Marc-Antoine Cameron once again started off this weekend's race with a fantastic car. Once again out front, leading laps, and they had contact with a lap car that cost him a tire, and he had to pit, unfortunately. So kind of ruined their day. And they had to pit for fuel. They ran it out of gas, and it caused a caution. Brett Taylor started up front, struggled all day long, and he came back, finished 13th, but I know he was beating himself up about that. Brett will get better. There are some days that are better and some days that aren't, and we're going to talk about this guy right now. This was probably the most, I know you do, Brian. That's totally cool, man. You're allowed to have a lot to say, man. It's completely cool. That's what we do here, right? We talk about it. We don't always have to agree on what people's opinions are. That's the whole reason why we have a Pinty's Power Hour, right? Is get to talk about the racing and talk about what we think about it. Daniel Bois, MBS Motorsports. Holy moly. If you guys didn't know, this is a brand new organization. This is a brand new team. Daniel Bois has only made 2 starts in this series previously, and Daniel's, as he said, he's not technically a road course guy first. He's an oval track racer first, but you wouldn't be able to tell. This team was up in 4th place towards the last little bit. They were battling for a podium in their very first race, and unfortunately, just towards the end, they ran out of fuel, and unfortunately, it just didn't end up where they were hoping. dropping out of the top 4 to the very end, and that's a difficult deal for them, difficult pill to swallow. But for a team that's just starting out, that's a solid start. DJ Kennington had a pretty tough race. He was not very good off the start, and they really fell back. He and Brett Taylor had started up higher in the field, and unfortunately they did fall back. Just outside the top 10 for him, he will be in 11th place as we head to Chaudier, but 11th place, sorry, in the results. A guy who just kind of hung around all day in the eBay Motors car, the eBay Motors 200, Larry Jackson, avoided, of course, the storm and all of the debris falling all over the place. He had a table land on him during that storm and came back and finished in 10th place. Rookie J.P. Bergeron, in the only Mustang in the field, came back and finished in 9th place. Another rookie, Brandon Watson, in what was a Ford generic Chevy body. It is definitely going to be a lot of fun to see what he can do for the rest of the year, because, again, for a guy that doesn't have any road course experience and then not running ever in the rain, Brandon did pretty good in that number 9 car. LP Dumoulin had some struggles. Unfortunately, they ran out of gas towards the end of the race. But LP Dumoulin, I think we can bet on him once again to be pretty strong. Trayton Lapcevich had a rough start to his season. We'll hear from him later on as well, finishing in 6th place. They weren't able to get that podium, but I'll tell you, for what they did after the damage to the car, the work that 22 Racing put in on that FBM number 20 was absolutely amazing, that they were able to run the entire race. Trayton, to his credit, again, he hasn't raced a lot in the rain, so this was a pretty good attempt for him. How about LP Montour's first start at CTMP? He made one start last season at GP3R. A 5th place finish. We're going to see his reaction thanks to Dumoulin competition coming up. Gary Clute, even with that damage, comes back, finishes in 4th place. That's great for him in the championship. How about Dexter Stacey? He's been in this series since 16 years old. Took a bit of a break, ran in the Xfinity Series. Yes, Dennis, they do run ovals, and that's what our next race is, so I'm expecting a little bit of that contact, Brian, is going to happen there. I wouldn't bet that this goes a couple of races. I think this happens in the next race. Dexter Stacey, 3rd place, best career finish for him. How about that? Excellent run for him in that EHR. He led the way for EHR in this race. Alex Tagliani in 2nd place, and Kevin Lacroix gets the race victory. Only five cars finish on the lead lap, and that's not typical of what we'd see at CTMP. So a pretty sad kind of race that we had, unfortunately. It was, Mike, it is, man. He's had a lot of struggles in this series. If you remember, when he came in, he ran a yellow 55 Pontiac Grand Prix. They ran towards the back in most of those races. He did have a top 5 years ago, but for him, this is pretty cool for him, especially. We'll hear his reaction just before our mic cut out when we were there at CTMP. Now, as we move on, we're going to talk about where the standings are. Now, this finally is updated. It wasn't updated earlier before I posted it when I posted it to the group, but let's take a look at what we've got here. So Kevin Lacroix now leads the championship by 1 point over Trayton Lapcevich. You've got Alex Tagliani, Gary Clute, and Brandon Watson. Now, that's a solid top 5 right there. Mike, you're absolutely right. It did. The conditions were super interesting. And I think that kind of ruined the race. I agree with you in a way. They were so strung out so early, it made it impossible for people to catch back up again, right? So it was a tough start no matter what. Dennis, they are available on Flow Racing. You can check it out. Also on YouTube, typically there is people that do post them. They're just not live, obviously, on YouTube. So Dennis, you can definitely check them out. Flow Racing, if you have it, they will carry it live. Gary Clute, Brandon Watson, Marc-Antoine Cameron, not where he really deserves to be in the points. He should be a little higher. It's just the bad luck that's kind of bit him. LP Dumoulin, J.P. Bergeron, and after what was an awful finish last week, Dexter Stacey is already up into 9th place. and he finished 9th in the championship last year, his best ever in the point standings, or it's not both his best ever, but one of his best ever. 10th for DJ Kennington, currently in the point standings. Mark Dilly, 11th. Larry Jackson is 12th. Renamato, not bad, 13th place for him. Brett Taylor, Brian Cathcart, Wallace Stacy, Andrew Ranger. Now, this is where I'm curious if we've got people in the chat. We've got a couple people watching here. Is he out of this championship already? He's technically 35 back, and he's 17th in the point standing. It's only the second race of the season, but with how close the rest of the field is, can he afford 2 bad races? It's one of those guys that you're going, Andrew Ranger, yeah, I don't think we're going to worry about him because he can pull off 4 or 5 wins in a row if he wants. I think we'll definitely see him to be very strong at CTMP again. Toronto, iCar, GP3R, there's no doubt there. Glenn Stiers and unfortunately Sam Fellows in 19th place in the standings. I'm not sure, Brian. I don't know if a lot of them had dry setups. The rain was kind of expected. It's just one of those things. I think there was so much rain and it was so wet when they started the race that people really got strung out really quick. And there's a lot of inexperience as well in the field, just on road courses alone. So it kind of seemed like that's what was going to happen. LP Montour, Rafael Lassar, Daniel Bois, Peter Kloot, Brent Weller, Matthew Scannell, and Ray Jr. Cortamash are not expected to battle for the championship. So you'll see they've only made 1 start each. We should be able to see Ray Cortamash. He will be on all the road courses. Hopefully Matthew Scannell as well. Peter Kloot, we could potentially see him in Toronto in GP3R. And then, of course, yeah, I agree there, Mike. He's not out of it, just needs some luck. Caden Lapsovich as his championship crew chief, man. I mean, as a champion crew chief, pretty good bet that he'll be able to come back from this and the struggles that he has had so far. So, obviously, the finish there was something to be desired. But as we head now to Autodrome Chaudier, it is going to be very exciting because we haven't been there since 2019. Now, obviously, as an English-speaking Ontarian, I'm not the best at being able to figure out all the details, but I think I've been able to find out some of the details for Chaudier so far. We're going to take a look right here. June 11th, and it says 2 o'clock here. I'm not sure, however, if this is the start time of the race or whether or not this is the gates opening. However, there is still tickets available. We might have some tickets available here on the NASCAR Pinty Series community page. Thanks to our friends at Quick Wick. $50 for a ticket still out there, and Chaudier, of course, is always a great time. Now, the benefit of having Chaudier on a Saturday this year is that if there is weather, you can run it on the Sunday, I would hope. 400 laps in 2 divisions. You're going to have the Sportsman Series and the NASCAR Pinty Series there. I do have a possible entry list that I have put together as well. I think you guys are going to like this field that it turns out to have. But we're going to continue on here talking about everything that has happened so far. We're going to go and talk about something that, we'll get back to our Chaudier talk in a minute. You see there's some tickets there that you have available for Chaudier. We haven't been back since 2019, but, we haven't been out west as well since 2019. And today, one of our Western Series drivers is celebrating a birthday. We want to wish our good friend Chantel Kalika of Busch Racing. Chantel is celebrating a birthday. Her and her son actually are celebrating birthdays. So we want to send our best wishes out to Chantel. If you've ever had the opportunity to chat with her, she is absolutely a lot of fun. Thank you for the plug, Brian. I appreciate that. I can't. That's pretty good, buddy. I think that's pretty good. Thank you. But Chantel Kalika is one of the best people in this series. She's a racing mom who, definitely is excited to have. She's going to have a lot of fun next year. in this year. I'm saying next year. This year, because we're going back out west and we're going to Sutherland Automotive and Edmonton, where we're going to see the 43 car out there once again. We'd love to see her in full-time capacity. If anybody knows some businesses that'd be willing to step up and help her achieve some full-time goals here in the NASCAR Pinty Series, definitely reach out and we can get you in discussions with her. But congratulations and happy birthday, Chantel and Carter Kalika. We are so happy for you guys. Now, we talked about some great moments. Well, how about the one for LP Montour? I'm not sure if we're going to have sound on this again. I'm trying to still figure that all out here. But LP Montour came in his second career start for Dumoulin competition and finishes in 5th place. Let's take a look at his reaction and the team's reaction after he finished the race.
Yeah, great for Good job, buddy. Good job, man.
What can you say? How cool. That's 5th place. That's not a win. That's not second. That's not third. The smile says everything, and that's what this is all about. You get to see people being able to do what they've always wanted to do, and LP Montour getting an opportunity to get a 5th place finish in the Kamloops number 13. That's absolutely fantastic to see. We've definitely got some more stuff to go over here on the NASCAR Pinty Series Power Hour. We'll talk once again about these results. We'll talk more again about the race yesterday, our race at Sunset, what we could see at Chaudier, but we want to hear from some of the drivers as well. Now, I was out at the track yesterday and able to get the reactions of some of the drivers, some that did have some difficult finishes. So let's first talk with the guy who, of course, is synonymous with CTMP. His dad is part of the ownership group running the number 98 Curb Records, Love Good Fats, 98 car for Jim Bray, Sam Fellows.
Not really the day that you were hoping for here at home, but let's talk about what kind of challenges you had to deal with in the 98 car, and we'll also talk about your amazing, tasty new product that you've got on your race car.
Yeah. It sucks. That's one word. That's basically for the day. It sucks. But just like warm-up lap, the car just started shaking in second gear. So we brought it in, tried a few things. Then we went to change the transmission, brought it back out. It fixed it a little bit, but still issue with drive. Spinning the wheels in third gear, something's wrong. So, one of those races where it was just, keep the nose clean, and, Larry did a great job. I think he finished 9th, so we probably would have been right around there with him. So somewhere in the top 10, it sucks just thinking about it. So I'm here in the paddock handing out Love Good Fats bars, promoting my new sponsor, feeding the hungry people, and just trying to focus on the positives.
Well, we can't thank you enough, Sam. Sam Fellows, tough day today, but he'll be back. He's running full season this year, right? So
pretty much, yeah, pretty much.
So he's going to be back, hopefully, at Chaudier with a good run.
Yeah. I'm really looking forward to it. We had a good car at Sunset in the long run. We just got to fix it a little bit, have a little pace for the short run, and we'll be there. So.
All right, that's it from Sam Fellows here at CTMP.
You can't always win the race, but you would always hope that you're able to start it. And unfortunately, Sam Fellows was not able to start it, and it sucks, man. I mean, he was able to get out and get an opportunity to race with Jim Bray last year. They didn't run all of the races. The plan, of course, as you heard from him, is to run the full season. They are going to be out at Chaudier, and so hopefully he can rebound from that race. It's tough to go out so early and have mechanical failure. but there's not much you can really do about it if that is the case. Now, he wasn't the only person that ran at CTMP and had trouble. Trayton Lapsovich was running in the qualifying and put a blistering lap out, finishing in second on the speed chart. Would have started in second. Of course, he did, but he had damage on the front of the car. Let's hear from Trayton Lapsovich on what it was like to run in the rain and what he's got looking forward to at Chaudier.
Come on. Welcome back to CTMP, our good buddy Trayton Lapsovich. Now officially Pinty Series winner, Trayton Lapsovich. Bit of a weird weekend for you. Really fast, damage to the car. Kind of had to fight. I think everybody had to fight Kevin today. Like, there was no one catching them. But let's talk about your race.
Yeah, like you said, in practice yesterday we had an incident. That was just me trying to get a little more out of the car, and it didn't really work out for me. Yeah. So crew did a great job. I got a great group of guys over at 22 Racing, that's for sure. So got the car back together, and that was a win in itself to start the race. I was a little hesitant in the rain at first. The rain at Mossport is definitely a different animal, and for someone that doesn't have a lot of experience in the rain, it was was definitely hard. It was different.
Yeah.
So I got up to speed as the race went on. I think I figured it out a little later than I needed to. I just needed to stay on the lead lap there, and I think we would have been able to pick up a better finish at the end.
It was weird because for a race that had so much rain, we had no cautions for most of it, and then all of a sudden towards the end it was caution after caution after caution. When you did start that opening lap, people were going 3 wide right from the drop. Like, Andrew just dove it right in there. That seems like something your older brother might have done. But what did you think about the craziness to start the race?
I was just trying to survive, honestly. I saw all the guys that knew what they were doing. That was pretty recognizable right away. So I was just trying to get into my rhythm there, get in a spot by myself and just log laps.
Well, I guess we're going to see back near the front at Chaudier, how we got to talk about. We haven't been there in a couple years, so you've not been there in this series. So
Chaudier's been one that I've been excited for, honestly. I was really hoping we got to go there last year, and then it got rained out. So watching Caden there in the years past, it's been a track that I want to get on, so I'm definitely really excited for it.
Awesome. We want to thank Trayton Lapsovich for joining us once again here on the Stickers and Stuffs podcast.
So, I mean, Trayton Lapsovich, obviously, even though he did run in this series last year, you still don't have the experience, yes, Brian, we did see them running rain tires. They did. And then they switched to slicks. It was a battle of who was going to switch to the slick tires, which added to it. There was obviously a lot of questioning around this. I'm going to pull up my phone here because there was controversy that did take place at the track regarding cautions and then the red flag. I want to bring up a point, and this is not to disparage the track at all, but there is a problem that, as a race fan, that was pretty glaring, and we had it last year, and we had it again this year. There is no scoring at the track. There's no scoring tower. There's no poll that shows you what lap we're on. Doesn't show where the top 5 positions, who's in the lead. Yesterday, that was absolutely important because it was a lost cause. We could not hear the PA system, and because we didn't have data, I didn't have data. I had no idea which position anybody was in. No idea, because it was green flag for most of the race. So if you had something like a lap counter, if you had something like the top 5 positions, similar to what you see, a scoreboard of some sort, CTMP is a place that I think that they really need to look at that. Obviously, I know it's an expense, but for a race fan experience, if you had never been to a NASCAR Pinty Series race yesterday, you would have been absolutely confused as to what was going on. That's part of that's an issue there that I know is solvable. Obviously, in this day and age, with everybody having a phone attached to them, it makes it a lot easier for people to go and check the results. There's people streaming the racing. There was no service, and that's part of the problem there, though, right, Mike? That was part of the issue with, I know, timing and scoring was the same problem, is that we didn't have service, so Caitlin could not could not update the information. Like, there's nothing you can do if you've got no service. However, if you had somebody in scoring, they can update a board. Now, the problem is if there's no power, obviously that would have made it worse as well. However, I'm looking at it from a fan if there's people that have never been to a race before. And if I've never been to a race before, I kind of want to know who's leading. I want to know what lap we're on. I mean, when they were doing pit stops, I thought we were lap like 40 already. And Graydon pulled out his phone. He had service, luckily, and we were only on lap 22. I was shocked. I couldn't believe how early it was into the race. You know, it is one of those things that you have to we have to look at and go, you know, of the tracks that don't have service, and there is a lot still that don't have service, there's other things that you can do, like having a scoreboard that will make the fan experience a little bit better. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff there. There was a lot of things to make the race exciting. Lots of stuff to keep people occupied. But when you're a true race fan, you want to have something like that. I understand the PA system is as good as it's going to get for now, but it could be something that maybe we look for in the future at CTMP. I think that would be very helpful. Obviously, I think screens is a little much. I don't think I think it's a little too much, but you can bring in temporary scoring boards. It could be something like a rental scoreboard. I only think of it from that experience because if you put it large, if you put it tall enough right by the garage center, anybody that's on that side of the track can see it. I think if you were to do something in the maybe the Canadian Tire Bridge, something like that as well, so that people on the other side of the track can see kind of what's going on. There needs to be more of that. It's too difficult. It's too big of a track to not have communication with people. And unfortunately, that did lead to, I think, some of those cautions yesterday where communication wasn't getting through to people. And it may have led to some cars being stopped on track and no cautions. I'm a firm believer that that's what's happened, is that there was a lack of communication, whether that was at scoring or through the towers or whatever it was. So Caitlin said, they used to have a screen when the trucks came. The problem is, of course, it's the expense, right? Like it's hard when everything costs so much money, right? But I don't want to see people throwing shade at this and throwing shade at that when they don't know the experience. So I can explain to you what the experience was. There was no service, so we can't update stuff as normal as possible. That's just the reality of it. It's easy for people to be like, oh, well, you need to do this and you need to do that. Well, if you're not there, you can't really explain. Not to mention there was a big giant storm that came through the day before, and there was still power outages in the area. There were still cell service issues in the area. Obviously, this would have been, we've seen it already this year. At Sunset, they had no issues. They were up to date the entire time. We can easily work on this, and the series will continue to work on it. I mean, they're not. People like to, like I said, they like to throw shade and stuff, but when you realize how much work goes into it, it's a lot harder to put it all together than just, oh, okay, we're just gonna do this and this and then change all of our plans on the race day. Like that's not as easy as people make it sound, right? No, I'm not sure actually, Brian. I was told that apparently you can get, like I saw this on social media, that apparently you can, from like racing radios, you can get a radio, but I don't know if they make those, I don't believe they make those frequencies public. It would help the experience, I think, for sure. I think people would love to hear from that and hear DJ and his team going on, and Ranger and Joe Jr. talking about, like, that would be a great experience. I just don't know the feasibility of it. I don't know if there's specialized radios that you have to have for each team to do that as well. So one thing at a time, I think, like, we have to kind of, building the series, we need to make sure we have a consistency of like 20 plus cars each week in and week out, I think, before we start building and adding things on. I think as well, like, if I'm being honest with you, Westy, I mean, I'd say that I would rather get fan gear, like driver gear, before I get scanners. Like, I want to see a merch truck in there with hats and shirts for race teams. Like, that's, I think, the one thing that we're starting to build the fan base up, and they want that. And it's very noticeable that people are saying that they want to see that. One thing I can compliment CTMP on is that there are so many places to go. There's so many things to do. eBay Motors did an amazing job putting on. They had a booth there. They had a car in the race. That's what we love to see. We love to see sponsors coming in like eBay Canada. That was so cool to see. It's tough on a day where the autograph session was canceled because of all the rain. It was cold. It was hard to kind of get moving and get going. But at the end of the day, you've got to look and say, okay, well, we got the race done, and that's the biggest thing. And everybody made it through. We're hoping the best for everybody that was at the track and possibly was injured. But now we move ahead, and we move ahead to a race that we haven't seen since 2019, and it tends to be chaotic. Autodrome Chaudier is a track that I absolutely love. It is a track that I think is very underestimated in this series. I think last year, with everything that happened, lots of anger from the fan base regarding what happened, and that's completely fair. I mean, if I was in that area and I was going to Chaudier, I would have been very upset as well. But we know this year that we are going to Chaudier. Right now, it says 300 laps, so that would be our longest race of the season, which would be pretty big. Chaudier, of course, is a tight bull ring, and we've seen those lap cars at Sunset. They got in the way. And if they're going to be in the way there, they're going to be in the way at Sunset or at Chaudier as well. Now, working on a entry list right now. We should be able to see that by next week at some point, I believe. What week are we on? Next week? No, we'll see it in a couple weeks, I think. But here's what I came up with. And we'll figure out. Let me just move myself. I don't know why this put me over to the side again. Anyways, so this is where we're looking at right now. Now, this would be a big field at Chaudier if we are able to get this. Week of the race. Caitlin Patrick, the queen of the NASCAR Pinty Series social media, is here, and she's able to confirm everything. So the week of the race. Now, this is what I'm thinking, okay? The one at the bottom is just a complete guess. I have absolutely no knowledge at all. I am just saying that I think this could be possible. So you've got your main guys. You got Glenn Stiers, JP Bergeron, Renamoto, Taylor, Lassard, Watson. Those are all full-time guys. Matthew Kingsbury was expected to run at Sunset. They didn't end up. He ran a late model race instead. I expect that he is still going to race. Kennington, Tagliani, Lapsevich, Ranger, Dumoulin, Clute, Dilly, Stacy, Cathcart, Lacroix, full-time guys. Return, Donald Teague wasn't able to get to Sunset Speedway. I think we could, very good guess. He was out there testing today, so Donald Teague and his own team is more than likely going to be there. Larry Jackson, Dexter Stacy, Marc-Antoine Cameron, and Sam Fellows. Now, I've got Alex Gannett here, and Gannett was supposed to be at CTMP. Unfortunately, there was an illness of some sorts, which was very unfortunate that he was not able to race. But Joel Robinson on social media, when we did start the season, did say that Alex's plan was to do road courses and potentially some ovals. And if I'm looking at a race that Chaudier is the place to go, right? You don't have St. Eustache anymore to go to, which is such a shame. I loved that track, but I wouldn't be shocked if we'd see Alex Gannett out there. Rick Verburn in the chat, crew chief for DJ Kennington. Nice to see you, Rick. And then Simon Dionvienne, I was able to chat with him this afternoon, and he's working on some stuff, and he's confirmed that he's going to try, that's for sure, and hopefully he'll have some good news and some stuff to announce in the future. So that would increase it. That would give us 24 cars if all of those names actually do come through and go. Now, this last one obviously is a complete guess. I don't have any sort of knowledge about Alex Labbe coming, but Alex Labbe did help. JP Bergeron was helping him test. We saw Mario Gosselin there helping out at Sunset Speedway. Now, Alex Labbe was supposed to race at Chaudier last year for Dave Jacobs Racing. Unfortunately, with everything that happened, he wasn't able to be there. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, that it is an off week for the Xfinity Series. So it is entirely possible that Alex Labbe could make a return to the NASCAR Pinty Series for Chaudier. Like I said, I don't have any knowledge about it, but I think it would be very cool to happen, especially on a track that he has won before. That's where we're looking at for our Chaudier event. It's exciting. 300 laps going back to Chaudier. I know everybody is there. Yeah, I'm sorry, Mike, that that's your local track. That's tough to hear. I absolutely loved Saint Eustache. That was one of my favorite tracks. Caitlin, don't do that. That's not fair. Don't put the eyes watching, because that makes me think like you know something, and I'm gonna start bugging you. But, oh, she didn't think of that? Okay, all right. I'm just saying, I look at it and go, there's a lot of pieces there that would be a very, very good fit. Now, I'm not sure of any other local race car drivers that could potentially race at Chaudier, but that would be very fun to see Alex Labbe return to the series. Yeah, you don't. Okay, sure. Caitlin, yeah. Caitlin does the social media for the NASCAR Pinty series, but she doesn't know. That's fishy. That's fishy. I think I don't believe it. I don't believe it at all. So yeah, Chaudier, June 11th, and if everything goes to plan here, what will more than likely be a pretty chaotic race, that is for sure. So again, I'm going to say, make sure you guys check out the NASCAR Pinty Series community Facebook group. We can always use you. We just hit 4,000 members for the first time ever in the group. Is extremely exciting. Myself, Wesley Shaw, part of that group, as well as Evan Towell, who's the original admin for the group. We've been working on this group, trying to get it up when I started in 2020, November 2020. We are at 2.6, so we are now up to 4K. That is fantastic. We want to get to 5K by the end of the year. No, I am not going to Chaudier, unfortunately, Brian. We are actually going to save up and go to GP3R for the first time. Myself and the Stickers and Scuffs podcast are going to make the trip. Caitlin's going to have to show us where to go, because Grade and I both don't speak or read French, so that might be we might end up in Newfoundland, but yeah, we're really excited about this season, man. I think for me, I'd rather go and watch Chaudier at the track, absolutely, but there's a thing called money, and it's not always the easiest to come across, so we got to pick our races, and GP3R was the place that we decided to settle on. Then we got a couple more names that we want to hear from, and two guys that had fantastic runs at CTMP, Daniel Bois and MBS Motorsports. What a fantastic debut for that team. Let's hear from him right now.
Are we ready to go? Yeah? All right, back here at CTMP, Daniel Bois in the MBS, their very first race ever in this series, and you guys had something for him today. Let's talk about your race.
Yeah, it went well. I was just trying to get through the first part of the race. I was following Gary Clute for the longest time out there, and kind of came over the radio to the guys and said, "Is there anybody behind me?" They said no. I said, okay, I'm going to back off a little bit, save our stuff, and see how it plays out at the end. And luckily, yeah, we had a caution at the end. We were going to shoot it out with the big boys out there, and yeah, it just wasn't meant to be. We ran out of fuel going into 4. Racing for third, but I'm just happy to be up there, happy to be out here. It's a privilege to get to drive with these guys and be a part of this series, and hopefully we get to do some more.
The performance was definitely there, Daniel. I mean, as you said, the fuel, you couldn't help that, but how does it feel to be up there and running with all those guys?
It feels good. I've thought for years that I could keep with these guys, and try to run with them, but you always doubt yourself whether or not you could. And, with so many different conditions throughout the race, just to kind of see how you stack up makes you feel good at the end of the day. But I'm still disappointed. I'm a racer. You want to finish closer to the front.
So we know that CTMP was on your schedule.
Yeah.
CTMP in September, still on the schedule. Are we expecting anything else?
Don't know yet. We'll have to talk to the ownership group and see what they say. I'm lucky enough to get to drive this car. If we can put some funding together, then we'll try to make it out. But I'd love to get back on an oval. That's where I cut my roots. I raced in the Can-Am Midget Series. now the Quick Wick Series. So I raced in that series for many years, won a championship in that year. Get me on an oval and we'll have some fun.
Sounds like a lot of fun. We'll see Daniel Bois and MBS Motorsports this season in the NASCAR Pinty Series.
Amazing. When you think about all the stuff that it takes to put a race team together, starting off doing one race, 2 races, 3 races is extremely exciting. Today, one of the team owners, Donnie Beatty, did message and say that they're going to go to Toronto. Now, we don't know for sure. Of course, it's easier to say that you're going to. But yes, Brian, GP3R is August 7th. We're going to head down and enjoy the festivities. Caitlin tells us to bring Google Translate. I got to learn. You got to freshen up on our French, that's for sure. We definitely want to be able to communicate with the amazing people out there in Trois-Rivières and see the festivities. We've been told that they are something spectacular. We are heading close to the end of our NASCAR Pinty Series Power Hour again this week on G-Force TV. I want to thank Clinton Jeffrey, Adam Ross, Spencer Mullen for all of their help bringing this together and allowing me to be a part of it. Thank you to Caitlin Patrick and the folks at NASCAR for allowing the Stickers and Scuffs podcast there to be able to get footage for the show and for our podcast. And of course, I want to thank all of the fans who came out and said hi to me. It was a real big honor to be able to chat with people. And of course, it's not just me that you have to go out and support. I mean, you've done a great job doing that, but I don't need that support. You know who needs it? It's these race teams. These race teams, they need that support, those sponsors, those drivers. So when you have the opportunity, follow them on social media. Follow them, thank them, do whatever you can to show your appreciation for them so that we can keep this series building. That's what we want. That's what we need. We continue on as we wrap up this week with a guy who, this was probably the best story of this entire weekend, and that's Dexter Stacey. 3rd place in EHR. If the leaders had gotten together, he would have won this race, but he'll take that 3rd place position. Now, our microphone did die towards the end. It ran out of battery. It had been on for 7 hours at that time, but let's hear from Dexter Stacey and about his fantastic day. It was such a cool experience for us to finally get to see that for him.
All right, we're here with 3rd place finisher, Dexter Stacey. Yes.
On the podium, baby.
On the podium. How does that feel?
We worked hard all last year to get one, and it didn't work in our favor. It did this so far. It's been in our favor pretty well, so we'll take it.
Doggy.
Yes, you see the doggy.
Yes, the doggy.
Man, you ran such a good race today. You got strung out early from the wet weather, but man, you were wheeling it through the wet weather into the dry. Talk about your race a little, Dexter.
When they dropped the green flag, I was debating either hold back or go for it. And I said, you know what? I'm always holding back. I'm going for it this time. Went through first turn, passed 3-4, one shot, and I was like, wow, it's sticking. I said, let's go for another one. Yeah. Went to the second turn, passed another 3-4, and we just kept wheeling it all the way through.
Man, it was fun to watch.
I just want to say congratulations on getting a podium.
Thank you.
Yes, so we didn't have anything else that we could say, unfortunately, because the microphone was dead and we didn't have a spare battery with us. So, thank you so much for everybody that has tuned in once again. We are not done, by the way, on NASCAR Pinty Series Power Hours. We're going to be here for the entire season. Now, GP3R might be a little difficult. Not sure exactly when we're going to be home for that, but we're definitely excited. We'll be there at Weekend. We'll be there at Toronto. We'll also be at CTMP in the fall. At least one of us will be, I believe. Delaware Speedway, and then of course, if I am not at the racetrack, we will also be doing live post races on the NASCAR Pinty Series community Facebook group, hopefully with Graydon Bunn. We really appreciate the fan support on the group. We have we have people that are doing what they can to make this group successful, and that's all we want, really. Is we want to be able to continue to make things better and continue to grow as a series and continue to make things even more fun as we head into the rest of the season. I want to thank you guys for tuning in once again here on GeForce TV. Of course, don't stop tuning in because the action is just starting. You can go back and watch the APC Series season opener from this past week. You can also catch the Knights of Thunder and a lot more of the exciting dirt action that you're going to see later on this season. We're very excited to have you on as a part of GeForce TV, and we'll catch you all after Show Day here on the NASCAR Pinty Series Power Hour.